Chapter 1. An Ordinary Day. Sarah Jenkins's alarm blared, jolting her awake from a restless sleep. With a heavy sigh, she reached over and silenced the persistent beeping, signaling the start of another day. Throwing back the covers, Sarah swung her legs over the side of her bed and stretched, her muscles protesting the early hour. She moved through her morning routine with practice efficiency, showering, dressing in a simple blouse and skirt, and grabbing a quick breakfast of toast and coffee. As Sarah stepped out of her modest apartment, the bustling streets of the city greeted her. She joined the throngs of commuters making their way to work, her gaze drifting to the towering skyscrapers that pierced the skyline. Boarding the crowded subway, Sarah found a spot near the window and settled in for the familiar ride. The commute to work was a blur of gray skyscrapers, faceless commuters, and the cacophony of the city, a constant backdrop to her thoughts. Sarah stared out the window at the passing scenery, her mind wandering to thoughts of life beyond the confines of her desk job. The monotony of her days had long ago worn away the excitement she'd once felt about her position as the company's CEO secretary. Sarah envied the energy and purpose she saw in the faces of her fellow passengers. Businessmen rushing to important meetings, students chattering excitedly about their classes, and even the street vendors hawking their waves with vibrant enthusiasm. What must it be like, she wondered, to feel alive, to have an adventure, to be someone other than the invisible cog in the corporate machine? As the train rumbled on, Sarah's grip tightened on the strap of her worn leather briefcase, a small glimmer of hope flickering within her. Perhaps, one day, she would find the excitement she so desperately craved. The familiar sight of the tall, large, and gray office building came into view, and Sarah steeled herself for the day ahead. Stepping through the revolving glass doors, she offered the security guards a polite smile while scanning her ID. To get through the security gates, her expression not portraying none of the dissatisfaction that simmered beneath the surface. As Sarah made her way through the bustling lobby, moving towards the elevator, she exchanged brief greetings with fellow employees, each one a carefully crafted mask of professionalism. Sarah entered the elevator squished between other workers, squeezing past them to press the elevator button number 30. The ride in the elevator is always the same, filled with chatter amongst fellow employees about meetings, their work schedule, and company gossip. Sarah exited the elevator, walking towards her desk next to the CEO's office, saying good morning to all her colleagues she passed by. Finally reaching her desk, Sarah settled into the worn, ergonomic chair, her gaze sweeping across the sterile expanse of her workspace. Pristine computer screens, neatly stacked paperwork, and a framed photograph. That was the extent of her domain. Sitting down at her desk, expelling a deep sigh, Sarah mechanically powered on her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she dove into the endless stream of emails, Excel spreadsheets, and reports. Meetings and conference calls filled her calendar, each one blending into the next, leaving her feeling increasingly drained and uninspired. As the minutes ticked by, she found herself counting down the moments until her lunch break, the brief relief from the monotony and the only thing that kept her grounded. With practice efficiency, Sarah plowed through the stacks of paperwork that had accumulated on her desk. Her fingers danced across her keyboard, inputting data and drafting memos with the same mechanical precision that has become second nature over the years. As she worked, Sarah's gaze would occasionally drift to the clock mounted on the wall, her eyes tracking the slow, steady march of the seconds. Each minute that ticked by was a countdown to her coveted lunch break. Around her, the hum of activity ebbed and flowed as her colleagues moved through their own tasks, their faces etched with the same weary determination. Sarah glanced up from her computer screen, her eyes drawn to the window that overlooked the bustling city streets. The vibrant energy of the world beyond the office walls beckoned to her, a siren's call that promised adventure and excitement, everything that her current existence so sorely lacked. With a regretful sigh, she resumed her task. As the clock struck noon, Sarah closed her laptop and gathered her things, ready to embark on her usual lunch routine. She made her way to the company's cafeteria downstairs, grabbing a salad and a cup of coffee before finding a quiet corner to settle down in. Deep in her thoughts, she barely notices the hustle and bustle around her, her mind drifting to all the what-ifs and unfulfilled dreams she tucked away.
Maybe I should just quit my job and try something new.
She mused as she idly poked at her salad. The idea of leaving the security of her job was both terrifying and exhilarating, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was meant for something more than this endless cycle of repetition. As she finished her lunch, she got up, throwing away the remaining items on her plate, and headed back to her desk. Settling into her chair, she allowed her gaze to drift to the framed photograph on her desk, a snapshot of a happier time, when her life had held the promise of something more. In the image, Sarah and her ex-boyfriend Mike stood together, their arms wrapped around each other and their faces alight with genuine smiles. It was a moment frozen in time, a reminder of the life she had once dreamed of having, a life filled with adventure, passion, and the kind of deep connection that had once set her heart aflutter. Sarah traced the outline of Mike's face with her fingertips, a bittersweet pang of nostalgia tugging at her heart. The memory of their relationship was a double-edged sword, a testament to the life she had once envisioned for herself, and a painful reminder of how far she had strayed from that path. With a wistful sigh, Sarah leaned back in her chair, her gaze lingering on the photograph. In the months since their breakup, she tried to move on, to find someone new to love, but all of her attempts failed. She tried to find fulfillment in the routine of her work and small pleasures that punctured her days. But the longing for something more, something that had once been within her grasp, refused to be extinguished. As she gets lost in her thoughts, Sarah is oblivious to the commotion that is happening around her. She is snapped out of,